All right, hello everyone. Welcome to episode 30 of A Few Good Mics. Here with the usual crew, Nate from Louisville, Kentucky over there. And then 2-for-1 special, we got Garb and Mike sharing a screen.
Hello.
Cheers it
Doubles.
up. Start off coming off a pretty good weekend of NFL football. Close game with the Jags and the Patriots. And then you had the Vikings getting blown out by the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll start with that game. What was your biggest takeaway other than how much the Vikings sucked?
That was just it. I mean, if I had to take something away from that game, that would be it. If initially, they got the ball first, I believe they got the ball first, and then they just drove down and scored no problem, like 8 plays, 6 to 8 plays. Looked phenomenal. Keenum threw the pass to Kyle Rudolph, hit him on the stride, not even anyone in the vicinity. It was beautiful. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a shit show. And then the Eagles just took over that game, offensively, defensively. There was no stopping them, and you kind of seen, believe it or not, Case Keenum come to human, or the real Case Keenum, whatever you want to call it. I believe he threw a handful of picks in there too. Whatever, but they were a nutshell of themselves, especially on defense. Nick Foles did whatever he wanted. And it's funny because they were banged up the week before against the Saints, but they still managed to kind of bend but don't break and defense, and they totally broke. And like I believe it was brought up last weekend, the point coming off a huge win. It's huge in college. It's not so much big in the NFL, but an emotional win like that last week in Minnesota. Stephon Diggs, he got the Super Bowl in Minnesota. So much going on that I think they just had a little bit too much fun last week and couldn't do it this week, on top of the fact that the Eagles are a good team. They are legitimate. But just proved to be too much.
Yeah, let's keep the same screen. Garb, what did you think?
Well, I didn't expect it to go that way. I wanted the Eagles to win for many reasons, but I did not expect the defense of the Vikings to give up as much as they did. Now I get it. Xavier Rhodes is out. I know, Nate, you're going to want to touch on that, so I'm going to let you do that. But I didn't expect Nate Foles and that offense to light up as much as they did. Granted, Case Keenum throwing, I think it was 3 picks, helps a lot, especially when one of those is taken back for a touchdown. That's a huge pump for the offense there. Like we talked last week, that Keenum had so much help out of his defense to help him succeed. I was just really surprised on how much that defense for the Vikings gave up. But I think a lot of that speaks to the fact that the Eagles were at home. The Eagles were considered an underdog. I think a lot of that just all culminated together that they almost had nothing to lose. What was there to lose, since they were the ones that weren't given a shot anyway, even though they were the number 1 seed? So I was really surprised to see how much the defense for the Vikings gave up, and just how well the Eagles came together as a whole. I mean, their entire team, offense, defense, and special teams all together, was just phenomenal. And I guess I'm really looking forward to see if they can continue that success against a somewhat parallel match in the Patriots. Not so much saying that they're even teams, but I definitely think it's going to be a good matchup. But I guess my biggest takeaway there was just the surprising, failure of the Vikings defense, when everyone expected them to be the aspect that was going to, if anything, help them keep the game theirs, or to win it.
Just a quick point on that. All year long, it was either the Vikings or the Jags had the best defense, and you can argue for whichever side you will. But for the most part, you've seen it in the playoffs, Vikings stood their ground, but they got annihilated. That defense was shredded. And the Jags held their own. I mean, if I had to pick a defense, totally side note, but I think the Jags obviously held their own against the Patriots defensively. But just a side note.
All right, I'm gonna go first, Nate, before you, because
right.
I'm sure the conversation will end up trailing off because I know what we're gonna end up talking about. But I think probably my biggest takeaway, I guess, was, well, I'm gonna give a hell of a lot of credit to Coach Doug Peterson, because I was one of the people that said, with Nick Foles, like after Carson Wentz went down, that that they basically had no shot with Nick Foles. Like I basically was one of the people like, that 27-2 season was a fluke because he was shit afterwards. And even at the end of the season, the offense wasn't really going anywhere, like in week 16, 17. And they barely got past the Falcons. And, that says a lot to Doug Peterson too. I mean, to be able to bring Nick Foles out like that and to sort of retailor your offense, because you can't do everything that Carson Wentz does. So, and
what couldn't he do that Carson Wentz could?
Well, he can't move like Carson Wentz can.
He can't run the ball as well, yeah, but
Carson Wentz can break out of the pocket and make plays with him.
There's not that much. It's equally effective.
But another thing too is what I was going to say next was that it really showed how much, I guess, undervalued their weapons are, because you think Alshon Jeffrey and then Zach Ertz, but then Corey Clement, he had some big plays, and Trey Burton, and then Torrey Smith, who's past his prime, but he had a touchdown pass, and even he could have had two because he had one a bomb that got dropped.
And if you want to talk underrated players, I mean, the whole defense. No one was talking about their defense. They were the one defense.
I gave the defense was one of the biggest reason why I thought they would win from last week. I didn't think that it would be obviously they played really good, but no one thought that. And then but the main thing why they won was because Nick Foles played the game of his life, and he was outstanding that game.
Didn't he throw 6 tutties in one game before?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
game of his life.
Okay, but a regular season game won't compare to this to go to the Super Bowl.
Fair.
So
not his best performance, but the biggest stage.
Yeah, he didn't, because you could have easily expected. You wouldn't have been surprised if Nick Foles just played like shit and it was a 10-7 game. And
that's not true. I would have been surprised if he played like shit.
And but yeah, those are my 2 takeaways. All right, Nate, floor's yours.
All right, so I mean, obviously with Vikings, they laid a nut. I mean, it's one of those things with the defense, losing Rhodes, early part of that game. You always see Harrison Smith kind of piggybacks off Xavier Rhodes. You always kind of see that, and as you kind of see, I thought Harrison Smith played the worst game of his NFL career. It's one of those things you look at, the Vikings, the big picture, they came off that dramatic win against New Orleans, and, everyone, their sights were on, we're going home, we're going to Minnesota, we're going to go win the Super Bowl and whatever, all the BS that they were trying to accumulate. But, I mean, you really look at that defense, they got torched. The secondary was god-awful. They also lost Sadejo, which didn't help. He's not great, but still didn't help. Linebackers weren't making tackles. I mean, there was a lot in that game where it's just like Nick Foles throws deep. Nick Foles put his team on his back. No, everybody, all the critics were all over him that he's not going to, go far. He's not going to do this. And I think he used that as fuel. And Doug Peterson, obviously, he's a quarterback's coach. He was Favre's lifetime backup. He knows how to get guys in the trenches and get them out there. So, I mean, it's really one of those things. I'm not that surprised that Nick Foles got the job done. I am surprised about the score of the game. The score of the game was just unreal. I was expecting, maybe a 10-point game, maybe 7, but it's not expecting a 38-7 washout. But, I mean, you just kind of take Xavier Rhodes away from that defense. They're a whole different ball club. So that's what I got.
All right. Are we going to address the tweet he sent out? Or do we want to leave that?
What was the tweet?
Him comparing Xavier Rhodes to being the Aaron Rodgers of that defense.
No.
I will let Nate redeem himself and just see where it goes from there.
I mean, when you look at it from a team morale standpoint, like as a Packer, I feel like the team morale went way down after we lost Rodgers. From the fan base, from the players, from the coaches, I feel like it went down. And I feel like with Xavier going down that first part, of last game, you look at it from a morale standpoint. It's like, okay, you got your hottest weapon out. Granted, they always say defense wins championships, but I mean, it's one of those things. If he's not firing on all cylinders, you're more than likely your team's not firing on all cylinders. So that's all I'm really going to say about in that without
I don't think
having
that
a 2-hour
Xavier
argument
Rhodes-
about it.
Xavier Rhodes and Aaron Rodgers both have the exact same impact on morale. I don't even think that's comparable.
I mean, when you look at it, I mean, if you're, like I said, if your top gun isn't one playing or two isn't playing well and is getting
The
just,
top gun is Xavier Rhodes, not Anthony Barr or anybody else on that defense.
I wouldn't say Anthony Barr. I wouldn't say Kendricks. I would say Rhodes is the leader of that defense, just like Rodgers is the leader of our offense.
I guess
All right.
agree to disagree.
All right, we're gonna leave it there. We're gonna
good.
talk about the best game of the weekend, most entertaining game of the weekend: Jaguars and Patriots. Jaguars took a 10-point lead into the fourth quarter, but of course, we all knew how that game was going to end up turning out. It was Brady, with the injured hand, that came back and led the Patriots to another Super Bowl. Well, let's see. What was your biggest takeaway from this game? We'll go.
I can start.
Nate, you start.
I mean, I thought my biggest takeaway was just watching Jacksonville really stay in it. I thought it was going to be a real close game to start, first, second quarter, and then Patriots were just going to kind of slowly pull away. But Jacksonville played tough. With that big play with Miles Jack of that unexpected fumble that nobody really thought would be a fumble. That was a huge play in the game. But I mean, TB12, what TB12 does best is down in the trenches, fourth quarter, he's got a game to win, and that's what he did. I mean, Jags, a lot of potential. Going to be a great looking team in the next 4 or 5 years with all those young guys on defense. But it's really one of those things. Tom Brady's been there 1,000 times. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly what he needs to do to get there. It's unfortunate that the Jags can pull it out. I think we were all rooting for the Jags. But I mean, they'll get their time. They'll get their time in the next 5 years to redeem themselves and probably get to the Super Bowl. So,
Obviously, that's a really good young team. A lot of talent there. They'll be fine going forward. It's Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and the Patriots at home in Foxborough. I mean, there's been 2 people to go in there and do that, like beat that team. I can't even remember. It was
Jets and Ravens.
Jets and Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
The Jets did that?
The Jets beat them back in 2010 because then they lost to the Steelers in the championship.
The Mark
But,
Sanchez led.
It just doesn't happen a lot. If there was a team to do it, I felt like it was the Jags just because defensively they were phenomenal. And I never really bought into the Patriots. I mean, realistically, if you take any of those guys away, I mean, who's the stud on offense besides Gronk as far as a weapon? They have decent backs, but I don't think Amendola goes anywhere else. He's a mediocre wide receiver. It's just all scheme. It's all scheme and offense and defense. There's not even that many good people on either side, really, in my opinion, like superstars. But it sucked. I thought the Jags got shammed on a couple penalties, but that's just the way it is.
So, I mean, obviously not happy to see the Patriots back in the Super Bowl. Not that it's anything against the team. I got nothing against Belichick, Brady, or that organization. It's just the overwhelming aspect of they're there again. It's just boring. But like Mike was just touching on there, going to Foxborough in an AFC Championship game against the Patriots like that. I mean, they made it there 7 years in a row. Obviously, they're there for the right reasons. They know what they're doing. I heard a stat Sunday over the radio that I believe the combined amount of players in Jacksonville to play in an AFC Championship was 6. The combined amount of games based on the Patriots team was 106. So just experience there nonetheless. Probably paid a bit of a feel in that fourth quarter comeback that the Patriots had. I can't really talk much on the reffing. I know that there was a bunch of stuff that blew up Facebook and Twitter. I didn't see part of the game, but so I can't really touch on that part of it. But I think Jacksonville did a lot better than anyone expected. Well, I can't say I think. I know they did. And the fact that they had that 10-point lead going into the fourth quarter is just baffling. I mean, anyone to go into Foxborough and have that good of a game, I mean, kudos to them. But I think it's just the experience aspect was part of what led into the possible downfall there. But, I mean, all you can do is give credit to Jacksonville and hope that they can keep it up. And it'd be nice to see a bit of a change over the next couple of years in the AFC, because outside of New England and Pittsburgh, I mean, really there's not a lot else when you look at the AFC, when you consider that the teams in it were Jacksonville, Buffalo, Tennessee. I mean, New England's going to be there every single year when you have teams like that coming as a competition. But I'm getting off track. I was just happy to experience a well-fought game nonetheless.
Yeah, see, but I thought, well, because I had, picked the Jags to win. I know a lot of that was not wanting the Patriots to win, but their defense played well, which I thought would happen. And, I mean, Fournette at times looked really good. But it was just some of the coaching, I guess, like the play calls, especially in the second half. Like, why are you running Leonard Fournette out of the shotgun so much? That I didn't understand. And what really got to me, even though we played a pretty good first half, was how much you could tell that they didn't trust Blake Bortles to make a play. It was like and it was really telling, at the end of the first half, they have 50 seconds and 2 timeouts, and they decided to just kneel the clock out. It's like, you don't even give yourself a chance. Even, hell, you get 3 points, you get the ball back, you never know what can happen. So, and then that'll lead us into our next topic, but I think what it really showed this last week was how they really don't trust Blake Bortles to do anything. And even then, that was part of why the defense, I guess, at the end sort of tailed off. Why one of the reasons what ended up leading to New England's comebacks was Jacksonville couldn't sustain any drives because they didn't let Bortles go out and make a play. Let's see. Did you guys end up agreeing with that or no?
I don't agree with that at all. I mean, in the sense of, I don't like how you kind of keep bashing on Blake Bortles. Not that he's a superstar.
I'm not saying he's bad.
I don't think that they don't have any.
Played fine in the first half.
I think that's kind of ridiculous. I think that's probably just what you said. That was right before halftime, right?
Yeah, you got 2 timeouts and a minute to go. What team isn't going for it?
They were up in Foxborough. I don't mind just writing that out. It's not what I would do, but I don't think it's a bad play with a young team. I mean, you throw a pick there or a fumble even. You throw a 60-yard pass that gets fumbled and returned or what have you. That's total game changer. You can just ride it out into halftime. You already got the lead. You got the momentum. I don't think it's like, oh, we don't trust Blake at all. We're taking a knee. You also had the best running game in the entire NFL. Why don't you hand it off?
Yeah, they could have done that too. It's just the fact they didn't do anything.
But you could say that they don't have trust in Leonard Fournette. I just don't think you can throw all the blame on Blake Bortles.
I'm not. I'm throwing it on the coaches.
I thought you just said they don't trust Blake Bortles.
They don't trust Blake Bortles.
That's why he's going after the coaches.
Well, then it's a coaching thing. Then I took it as in they don't trust Blake Bortles, as in that's like you should.
I said Bortles had he had a good first half. He made some really good throws, and even there was a couple where one that he threw behind Lee and that he kept running for a first down he could have, or the pass to Yeldon that was short. But other than that, he played a good first half, and you could have rode that out because he had some momentum going. So
yeah, I mean, I took it the wrong way. I thought you were trying to discredit Bortles.
See, now we'll go into our next topic. Then is the future of these teams. Both of them have quarterback questions to answer. At least Blake Bortles is a free agent for the Jags. We'll start there. Do you think the Jags should bring him back, or should they go after somebody else?
I think the Jags should bring him back. Took him to the AFC Championship game, obviously with the defense, but I think they should definitely bring him back.
Yeah, Blake the Snake's got to stay in Jacksonville. I think he's going to have a good offense there with Fournette. Got a good set of receiving cores there. I mean, not core. But even when you look at this offense,
And he didn't even have, wasn't Allen Robinson out?
Allen Robinson's been out all year.
Exactly. That's the top guy.
You fucker. I wanted to say that.
See, I agree. I think Bortles deserves to keep his job. I think he's not going to be he's not the most flashy guy. He's a straight up game manager, but he manages the games well and does enough, kind of like Rivers, to get by. I think they should keep him around because I mean I know Mooney's big philosophy is let's go get Eli and then have Blake sit under him for 2 years. And
I'm only making the Eli case. The only making that
because
they have Coughlin. That's it.
Eli's trash.
Eli's done. I don't like it.
See, I'd go after. I'd throw a 1 or 2 year deal at Kirk Cousins and see what they could do with that. But
Cleveland's going to offer the house on that.
I'd only bring if it's a decent enough price. I'm not paying $20 million for Bortles. But if the price gets too high, I'd look for someone else. But I'd have no problem with seeing them bring him back.
But he'd have to go after Kirk Cousins. You really think Kirk Cousins is better?
He would make the offense better. Yeah, I think he's better than Bortles.
Well, you think about all these receivers, all these guys that Coughlin's brought in, all these great players that are like young guys. They respect Blake Bortles because he's been their good guy forever. How do you know you're going to throw Cousins in there and Cousins isn't going to get the job done? You know, just based on, you know, the pedigree that Bortles at least, you know, gets by with Jacksonville. I mean.
And I'm just looking at stats, just comparing random things, and just if you go off of some quarterback stats alone, Blake Bortles had a pretty good year. I mean, I don't think you upgrade unless you're upgrading to like an elite quarterback. You're not going to get much more results, in my opinion. Like you got Cam Newton, he threw for more yards than Cam Newton. Cam Newton had 1 more touchdown, but Cam Newton also had 3 more picks. Blake Bortles had a better passer rating. He's just overall better. Was only sacked 24 times, and Newton was sacked 35. I mean, I'm just saying, like, that's a good quarterback. Cam Newton's a good quarterback. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. Obviously, they have different teams and different offenses and different defenses. But I'm just saying that, like, Blake Bortles had a pretty good year. And, I mean, you throw Kirk Cousins in there, they'll probably be the same. I don't think you're going to get – I mean, like I said, if you don't go elite, you're not going to change anything in that offense. They run the ball anyways.
Yeah, but if you got someone that you at least – yeah, and it said a lot. I mean, you look at Doug Marrone when he was asked at the beginning of the year, would you rather – like how many times would you throw the ball? He said preferably 0. Is that just because he loves Fournette so much, or is that because he doesn't like throwing the ball, or he doesn't like Bortles? I don't know what to read into that, but –
probably a little bit of both. I mean, I would run the ball every time if I could.
But wouldn't you think if you could get a better quarterback and you'd be able to open up the offense more, and that would make them you wouldn't only put up 3 points in the second half of that game.
I mean, that's one game.
I don't think a lot of that was on Bortles.
That's what I'm saying. Like, look at the course of a year. He's got just as good as stats as almost anybody. I don't think you could just go all Blake Bortles in the second half. I mean, he was the best quarterback in December stat-wise. Obviously, it's not postseason and everything, but I'm just saying, like, unless you go elite, I don't think you're getting any better offensively. Maybe slightly. You might get slightly worse. Unless you're elite, you're not going to elevate that team offensively.
Then maybe the route is you keep him for 1 more year. You pay him the $19 million option or whatever, and then you just draft somebody, and then you see what happens. You maybe get some competition going. I don't know.
But then what if it's the same result next year? AFC Championship, barely lost, played well all year.
Well, then you talk about it next year. Because he could get to the AFC Championship game, and then he plays like complete shit, and then throws 4 picks. I don't know.
But I don't think there was a game he played like complete shit all game, except for the whole team against the Niners.
But another thing, you look at that, and Once they started blitzing. All he did was throw the ball away. You panic under pressure or something. I don't know.
What quarterback doesn't panic under pressure?
Tom Brady.
Yeah, it's because he's probably cheating and has something to tell him.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh, my
No,
hand
no,
hurt.
no.
It looked like it hurt, Tom. It didn't hurt at all. Bullshit. You big.
That was a ploy,
bitch.
dude. If you look close, it was actually just ink made
It's
out
just
to
ink.
look like stitches.
Oh my god.
All right. Let's move on to Minnesota. What are you doing with them? Are you taking Case Keenum back, or are you bringing Bradford back? I don't know. What do you think, Nate? You're the resident Vikings expert. What do you think?
And you're the fan.
Get out. See, I don't think you take Keenum back, mainly because they interviewed Keenum, I think, right after the game, and it's like, if you really want to play in Minnesota, you want to play in Minnesota. He didn't sound like the answer that he gave the reporter kind of surprised me. He didn't sound like he really wanted to play there any longer. So I mean, obviously, I don't think Keenum's the answer.
What did he say specifically? Because I feel
He
like
said something along the lines like he was, because they asked him about contract negotiations, and he was like, I'm going to take the season off. I'm going to try and get better, and we'll talk about it later. If you want to play in Minnesota, if you want to play anywhere, you'd think you'd be a little bit more eager in that conversation. I guess I don't know. That's just me talking, but I guess that's what I took from it. But I mean, as far as all three of those quarterbacks, you really look at Bridgewater. God knows where he's at still. Bradford, guy's still this injury prone guy. They need to get somebody that's actually gonna I think the Vikings would be perfect for like a Kirk Cousins, just mainly because they don't have a guy that really is, I think, can get them real far. I mean, yeah, you could say Bridgewater got them, the division 1 year, but at the same time, that defense, that division pretty much. They need a quarterback that can air it out. They don't have any quarterbacks out of those three that can air it out. Keenum's probably the best thrower out of those three, but I still don't think all three of them, you take them back next year, being that they're all going to be free agents anyway. I mean, granted, they'll probably keep Bridgewater as a backup. That's probably what will happen, but I feel like you need to test free agency a little bit.
I don't have the stats in front of me, but for you to say that none of them could air it out, I think you're out of your fucking mind. But
Well, Bradford, I know, throws the ball about 4 yards every play. We all should know that.
what game was this?
I'm not talking about games. I'm talking about, you look at that, what everyone was advertising last year, how he had the highest, or the best accuracy or completion percentage, whatever. And that's because, and then you looked at his average pass per play, and the number was super low compared to, some of the other guys that were tossing at 12, 13 yards a pass, and he was in the 6, 7 range.
Where do you want to go? I'm looking up some stats because I think Nate's on drugs.
You see, I guess you go with Keenum, but like I said with the Jags with Bortles, it's all about I'm not paying $20 million for the guy. You bring him back for the right number. Otherwise, you take your shot with bringing back a Bradford or a Bridgewater. I don't know. I think you bring Bridgewater back at least as your backup anyway, because I think he'd be a fine backup. I think he was, but still, I don't think you're like I say with the Jags with Bortles. I don't think you're winning a Super Bowl with the guy. It's like what I say about Alex Smith too. Is you're going to have to upgrade eventually, but as for what the options right there, unless you're going to go get Drew Brees, that's not going to happen. So you might as well just bring Case Keenum back.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely. I would bring back. Honestly, I don't think there's too much of a drop off as long as there's no injuries between Case Keenum and Sam Bradford.
See, I would let Bradford walk. I just let him walk.
Yeah, I would. He's overpaid anyway.
What I would do is try to keep two, whether that's Bridgewater and Keenum or Bradford and Keenum, whatever. I try to keep two. at the cheap. That might be all on cheap because I think they can all do a decent job. I mean, I think of all those, I think Bridgewater's the least best. But and also, just want to hit on this. Case Keenum was 11th in average yards per pass. Just kidding. He was 13th. Meaning that he was better than over half the NFL at airing it out, Nate. I don't know.
I was talking about Bradford.
I thought you said none of them could air it out. I could almost guarantee you did.
Never mind. I thought you were talking about the other thing with like how far he throws the ball per pass. When I meant air it out, I mean like you don't see him throwing 40-yard Hail Marys or streak routes across the field. Yeah, he did last week because he was desperate.
What was that pass he threw in the beginning against the Eagles? That was at least 35 yards.
Yeah, but like I said, it wasn't like over 40. It was like 35.
You can't. Who the hell is out there throwing 40-yard tutties every single week?
Rodgers.
Come on, that's ridiculous. Like I said, either way, it doesn't matter who they have at quarterback for the most part. That defense is solid. They're going to put the quarterback in great position, and when they don't, a quarterback like Case Keenum, Sam Bradford, or Teddy Bridgewater is going to fold anyways, just like he did against the Eagles. You got a mediocre quarterback that can do well because the defense puts him in a good spot. This is what it is. He had a good year because he got the ball at the fucking 10 every time they picked it up and ran it back.
You see, now you got me looking up stats.
Supposed to look those stats up before the podcast starts.
This is why we need a
That's
stat
the rule.
guy.
Well, maybe
That's-
if you
that-
fucking
that's
looked
the
up
rule.
Mike
stats before
literally
you started
just said,
talking.
"Oh, you guys can talk. I'll look up stats real quick."
Because Nate brought up some asinine point.
And that's it. I'm trying to look that up too.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
they
this
chalk
is
it
not
up
the
to Nate
time
being
for it. We're
completed air yards.
Garb, say something.
So I think that Minnesota should go back to what worked for them, and I mean I don't really think Keenum's a good quarterback, but hey, obviously something was working well with that scheme. Obviously, there's no need for them to keep Keenum, Bradford, and Bridgewater, but I don't see them giving up on Bridgewater, even though I don't know if he'll ever really be what he was when he first got drafted. I agree with the fact that Keenum stays as a starter because it obviously worked for him. You let Bradford go, some team like Arizona or Miami is going to pay for him, and he might do something for him, but you let him go and you keep Bridgewater. I don't really know if there's much you're going to get out of him outside of a hopeful backup, but I mean, if that series that he played there against Cincinnati means anything, you're kind of screwed beyond your starting quarterback, but hey, it's Minnesota. I don't really care too much.
But yeah. So I guess is there anything else you guys want to touch on for these games or quarterback situations or?
Well, I do want
lines?
to point out we seem to have missed two teams when talking about quarterback situations. I'd like to touch on that.
Sure, go ahead.
I believe Brady will keep his position as the starter going into next season.
Wow.
Bold
move.
But not switching to Hoyer. Breaking news.
Obviously, if Foles completes the journey and wins the Super Bowl, I mean, they're going to stick with Wentz as their guy, but I mean, Philly really has the opportunity to get something out of Foles there for trade value. So, I mean, obviously Wentz is going to come back from his injury, but if anything, Foles is going to get traded out and given another chance to be a starter for another team.
Oh, I am going to check that contract real quick just to nope, he did sign a 2-year deal, so he has a contract next year, so they can't trade him. I thought he was a free agent after this year.
So I agree with Garb on the Arizona thing. He's going to get he's going to get probably, once he gets to Arizona or wherever, he's going to get a big contract to be the kind of their franchise guy. So I mean, I think Arizona would be a good fit. Miami probably wouldn't be that bad of a fit either, because I really don't see Jay Cutler round 2 coming back to Miami. But But yeah, I mean, I think Foles, he's playing for his money right now. He's gonna, end up somewhere else because it's not gonna be Philly because they're obviously gonna go Wentz. Obviously because he's the guy that kind of set up Foles to, although Foles has played phenomenal, set them up to be in the position they're kind of in now.
All right.
One thing I just want to quick state right there.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring in the fact that Mooney talked about Doug Peterson and the coaching and how they did. And I know Mike brought this up the other day that, yeah, Wentz brought him there, but with how Foles has done, I think more credit has to be given to the system itself and not just Wentz as the leader that everyone thought he was. Now, obviously, he was a leading MVP candidate. I'm not going to take away his success, but I think a lot of people are going to have high expectations out of Wentz next year, and I just don't see his stats, what he had in the first 13 weeks this year, keep that pace. And maybe it's just because I'm naturally want to disagree with everything you say, but I don't think Wentz is going to have that all-star season next year. Hopefully it's not because of the knee injury. I just don't see the stats being as high as they were at that point next year.
And I couldn't agree more. And that's the same thing as kind of we were going back before with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. It's a system thing. How many backups have come out of the Patriots and not done dick when they leave? That's like every single one. You could argue Garoppolo, but he's very young, and I was talking more along the lines like McCown, whatnot.
Yeah, we hear you.
Matt Flynn, same way with the Packers, killed it a couple games. But I guess it's not. That's kind of you might not be articulating that well. But what I'm trying to say is it's a system thing. Look at the Vikings. Sam Bradford was killing it. I don't know if you remember, but I remember he played the first couple of weeks, and he was a stud. Diggs was getting like 2 tutties a game from my fantasy squad. And it was awesome. Nobody was complaining. Nobody even knew Case Keenum where he was at that point. And then he goes down, and Case Keenum comes in and kills it. It's just like if you have a good system and a solid foundation, it doesn't matter who goes in there. It's going to make any quarterback look good. Not to take away from Wentz. He's obviously had a great year, and he's obviously good. But I don't think he's elite or a superstar or an MVP. If Nick Foles can hop in there and do the exact same thing, it's a system thing. It's quarterback built like easy for any quarterback to get in there. Not easy, but you catch my drift. I mean, Carson Palmer could go in there and do the same thing.
Yeah, and it's not just system too. It's like being able to adjust your system too. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting with the Vikings too next year because they did just lose their offensive coordinator. So that'll be something to watch out for the Vikes next year. Nate, you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think really with this, with you when you have a guy like Peterson who was a quarterback for 15 plus years. I mean, obviously, you're right. The system that Foles is in, Wentz is in, is designed to, be quarterback friendly and, going to get them to where they need to be. I think Carson Wentz has kind of hit what I like to say a peak. I don't want to say that he's not going to get any better, but he's going to be probably similar going forward next year to what he was this year, pending that he can obviously stay healthy. But, I think he's not going to be your guy who's going to get 39 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, that kind of player. But he's going to get you probably 30 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, something like that. So, I mean, I do think he'll have a good year. I just don't think – I think it's going to be kind of just average to what every person with higher expectations is going to want.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. All right, so before we move on to our Few Good Minutes segment, I want to ask Garb if you can give us a recap, because I'm sure he watched all of it. Give us your Raw 25 review.
All right, so obviously a lot of hype being the 25th anniversary of Raw, starting back in '93, longest weekly episodic show, blah blah blah. You guys know that. They built this up so much over the past couple months that I think they built up so much expectation that it was just unattainable. And that's kind of what happened. Now, I like how they started the show. They brought you into the Manhattan Center, which is where the first Raw happened back in '93. So that was awesome that they had that venue. But at the same time, they also had Raw at the Barclays Center as well. So here they're pretty much pulling off one show at two locations, which that's not easy to do. And they kind of failed at it. The Barclays Center was obviously the main part of the show. That's where your main matches were. That's where everything was going on. The Manhattan Center, yeah, it was cool. They had DX come out. They had Undertaker come out. They had some good guys of the past come out to relish in that crowd, but they didn't incorporate anything from the Barclays Center there. I mean, fans actually started chanting bullshit because they weren't getting as much of the excitement at that venue. There was no Jumbotron showing what was going on at the Barclays Center, nothing like that. No, yeah, they had some of the cool platforms going on there where it was set up like the 93 venue, very old school. So it was cool that way, but they really failed in that aspect. Now, I thought that they were going to incorporate more of the Hall of Famers into the show, but it almost seemed like it was more or less just a calling card where they called a lot of the former divas, Kelly Kelly, Jacqueline, Trish Stratus, Michelle McCool, and they just kind of had them up on the stage. They didn't incorporate them in anything in the ring, which I thought was odd since this weekend you got the Royal Rumble match where it's the first women's match, and I believe right now there's only 18 women who are in it, which are the main women of the two rosters right now. Where are the next 12 or so women going to come from? Who are they going to have in there? So I thought they failed to kind of incorporate that into the show. Similar, they also had that with men. They had some old school guys come out and more or less just kept them on the stage. Didn't really bring them into the ring, so I thought that they failed at that part. Now, what I thought was really cool is they really incorporated the APA's poker game where they had everyone all at the back table. Ted DiBiase threw down a huge stack of money. So that was cool how they brought that back together, because that was a lot of Raw back in the day too. Now, obviously, the show starting out, I think that was a genuine approach by both Shane and Stephanie McMahon, kind of acknowledging the fact that Raw lasted as long as it did, the accomplishments they had, and the turmoil that they dealt with over the years, and still were able to come out on top. Obviously, that heartfelt announcement was kind of drawn out when Vince came out and got all pissed off. Oh, you're going to give me a plaque, blah, blah, blah. I gave you all this. And we all know Stone Cold came out there, drank some beers, and gave a stunner to both Shane and Vince, which was expected. I think all in all, it was kind of an above average Raw. You take out the fact that you had the Hall of Famers come, it was like a typical Raw episode. They really built it up. Expectations were huge. I was really looking forward to it. Kind of disappointed, but I think that's what WWE does. They get themselves so amped up for these special situations, and it's almost like they make the expectation so high that it's not attainable by any sense. So I think part of it was they over-marketed it on their end, but altogether, it was still cool to see the Hall of Famers and the guys of the older years come back and just kind of relish with the fans nowadays to show that it's still appreciated what they did and what they built and where the company came from. With that being said, I didn't have the opportunity to watch SmackDown tonight, but I'm really excited for the Royal Rumble this weekend just because you got that women's Royal Rumble match, and it's all the same rules as the men. You got 30 women over the top rope, all that kind of jazz. I think it's going to be exciting to see. Obviously, the men's Royal Rumble match, you always have some random cards that come in. You never know who's going to show up. Last year, a few years ago, Kevin Nash as Diesel showed up. There was a Royal Rumble match. This one was a while back, years ago. Mick Foley showed up as 3 different personas. You never know what's going to happen, and that's what's so cool about it, because when that clock hits 0, you don't know who's going to come out. So that part is what I'm looking forward to this weekend. I think Raw 25 could have been a lot better than what it was, but I obviously don't deal with the storylines and whatnot, but it was cool to see the older guys in the Hall of Famers and whatnot, because it's always cool to incorporate them on the show.
All right, Garb, thank you for that. Now we move on to our Few Good Minutes segment. Anything you've seen since the last time we did a podcast is pretty much fair game. Who wants to give their first?
I'll go.
All right, Nate.
I touched on a Few Good Minutes probably a few months ago or a month ago. Bucks have fired Jason Kidd as head coach. I heard Giannis was pretty upset about it because that's really been his only coach. But I mean, I feel like the Bucks did have a point there. I mean, you have so much potential, so many great players on that roster, and you're eighth in the East. I mean, I just think that's unacceptable. Being that the talent you have, you got Jabari coming back in February. I mean, there's no reason to be eighth with that kind of roster. I just never felt like he coached them up as good as he should have. And I'm actually happy. You know, all of these Wisconsin moves that we always complain about and everything. I was actually happy with the firing of Kidd. So I mean, I think I don't like how they're gonna kind of ride out the season with basically an interim or assistant coach because I feel like stability wise, it's not gonna help them, especially when you get towards the playoffs. But I do think they made the right move by getting rid of him, just based on how they performed so far this year. So, good move by the Bucks.
All right.
I can go. I don't have a whole lot. I just saw the Brewers were going to sign Yu Darvish. They were looking at, they gave him a contract. They're trying to negotiations with him. I'm torn on this because I think the Brewers, I mean, they came out of nowhere with a solid year last year, and everyone thought they'd be rebuilding for a while. And we were right in it at the end to get into the playoffs. So, obviously with like a healthy Jimmy Nelson, if Yo-Yo has any games left in his system, that old bastard, we might be all right. I mean, the bullpen's pretty strong, and they got the hitters. Like I said, there are a lot of rebuilding. What they were doing was thought to be rebuilding, but they came around and have some good players there. I'm torn because I don't really want Hugh Darvish, especially on a 5-year deal. I think that's a lot. I think he's kind of washed up, and if at all he's not, he's definitely on the downside of his career. But could he? The flip side of that is, could he actually come out and throw a couple great games and take the Brewers bullpen up a notch to the point where they do make the playoffs, and then who knows what could happen? Anything could happen at that point. So let's kind of just leave that open for you guys, just a little take.
Yeah. See, I'm gonna say I would be fine with you, Darvish. And it all depends on the length of that contract, because again, he's just like when I said when they were going over when they were thinking about going for Arrieta. He's over 30, and that's obviously when pitchers go on the downside. So as long as it's maybe a 3-year deal max, then I'd be fine with it. And I just do like how they're still going after the big names, even though they're Milwaukee. So
and they're 1,000 times less likely to get them, but
yeah. But I appreciate them going after these guys.
Yeah.
The big fish.
It's a thought that counts.
Yep. There you go. Garb.
All right, so I'm going to kind of go off of something that's the initial news is about a week old, but it has a greater meaning. So last week, I cannot remember because I suck with who they are. I think it was Jimmy Uso. He's one of the tag team champions for SmackDown, him and his brother. I think it's Jimmy who got this. It could have been Jay, so I can't remember exactly. But the point I'm going to get at here is, here you have these professional athletes or entertainers or whoever you want to call them, be it sports, media, whatever it is. I don't understand how in today's day these people are still getting themselves caught up with OWIs. I mean, you have enough money to have your own driver, for lack of a better reason, call an Uber, take a taxi, do something. I don't understand why these people are putting themselves in positions to get these simple legal issues that just create down road problems for them. Now, yeah, when you get 1 or 2, it's not a big deal. When you think of it for some all-star or some big movie star, whoever it may be, but it does create a problem for you because it depends on the risky behavior you're putting yourself in. And I don't understand why these players and entertainers do that to themselves. You have everything you need. Why would you risk putting yourself in a position to make it worse for you? I think the one athlete that always had it best was Derek Jeter. I think everywhere he went, everywhere he would go, he would always have someone drive him. Not because he didn't like driving, it was just that take the responsibility out of his hands. There's no need for him to have to worry about it when you can pay someone else that's their job to get you from point A to B and back to A safely. That way you can do what you want to do. Go out to the club, go out to a party, hang out with your guys, do whatever you're going to do, and you don't have to worry about that stupid legal aspect of having to sit in jail overnight or whatnot. And here we sit in Wisconsin with one of the least or more lenient style OWI laws in the country, and we're shunned upon it, but yet you have all these big names that get themselves caught up every month, all the time, and we kind of ignore it because, oh, well, that's just, well, he's a Pro Bowler, he's an All-Star, it's no big deal. But it is a big deal, and I just don't understand when these people are going to get themselves straight and realize that there's something beyond me here, because not only are you going to affect yourself, but depending on what you are, an athlete or an entertainer, you're going to infect your team and those that you associate yourselves around. So if anything, keep your fucking head on your shoulders, call someone to give you a ride, and just get home safely and enjoy the night yourself. There's no need to put yourself behind a wheel. It's not safe for you, not safe for anyone else.
I think we can all agree on that one there, Garb. I'm going to take mine and just take another second to get a quick laugh in at the city of Minneapolis. So it was brought to my attention looking at Twitter here from my good friend Dylan Larson, D-Lar. Fucking, just imagine what it's like being a Minnesotan right now, going through Minneapolis. They're setting up for Super Bowl week and seeing all these Eagles stuff. All these Eagle fans celebrating their Super Bowl right on your front yard. That's just hilarious to me. I didn't even think of that.
Side note, in Minneapolis, not a lot of people probably have a front yard, but okay.
Yeah, it's kind of tight spaces around there.
Who cares, man? It's still funny. All right, anything else? Anything else from you guys?
Oh, I will just say one last thing. I want to give all those Eagles fans a lot of credit for working together, coming together as a fan base to get up those greased light poles. You couldn't have done it alone, so happy to see you guys all work together to achieve that and get to the top. And to whoever you are that drove that dune buggy up the stairs, I mean, kudos to you, man. Fucking crazy.
Oh, and hopefully the guy that ran into that pole running for the subway doing a little bit better. And
it's literally about to say.
And if we can ask their fans to stop punching police horses too, that'd be great.
Oh, that's right.
and there, I also was hearing there was a lot of Vikings fans that were saying it was the most hostile environment. Here's the thing: it's a playoff game. It's an NFC Championship game. Grow up, you fucking pussies. That's all I gotta say.
Or a hostile environment. How about you go and not let let Eagles fans flood your? Or never mind.
Just quit.
I'm stopping. All right. That's it for this episode of A Few Good Mics. Thanks for watching, whether it's on YouTube or listening on iTunes. Hit the subscribe button. Watch us next week. Bye.
Howdy.